Whole You podcast listeners, it's Dr. Janine Krause from the Health Fix podcast. It's a podcast where I talk about tips, tricks, and techniques to have sharp minds, limitless energy, and fit physiques for life. Check out episode 157 of the Happy Whole You podcast, where I talk about personalized wellness for slowing down the aging process. You're listening to the Happy Whole You podcast. Let's introduce you to Dr. Anna Marie Frank.
Hey, you guys, welcome to the Happy Whole You podcast. Today I have Trish Bland with me, and she earned her Bachelor's of Science in Nutrition and Dietetics from the University of California, Davis. And she is the founder and owner of Lean, Lean Consulting, which is lifestyle of exercise and nutrition. And she is a private practice dietitian. She has a laundry list of accomplishments, and I'm so excited to share her with you. So get ready to take some notes, and here we go. All right, Trish, thank you for joining us on the Happy Whole You podcast.
It's a privilege to be here. Thank you so much, Anna Marie, for having me.
Well, today we're going to talk about intuitive eating, our relationship with food, and just have a conversation centered around mindfulness nutrition. I know that is your wheelhouse. You have an extensive background. And so could you just start off with sharing with our listeners who you are, just a little bit of how you got to where you're at, and like the 411 on all things Trish.
Okay. Thank you. So I was actually overweight as a child, and I was put on a diet actually at the age of 12, and it was life-changing because by the time I had turned 13, had lost 40 pounds. And I was always the overweight child, and it affected athleticism, and I got teased. And so then I realized, like, wow, I don't get teased anymore. And wow, I can move better. And I actually became a very good runner in high school, and just didn't realize what my body was capable of by having just less body mass to move. But still also it was shocking to me how cruel people could be. And then just by changing my appearance, how nice people became. And as I got older, I found out that there was actually a profession as a dietitian to help people. And I thought, you know what, I've got to help people not be so trapped with food, and feel the need to use food for comfort and as a coping mechanism, because it can be so damaging on so many levels, emotionally, physically, spiritually. And I wanted to help people with that, because one thing that caused me to gain weight, I'll be very candid, I've given presentations on this before, was that I was brutally sexually assaulted at the age of 12 by someone I did not know. He was hiding in a woman's restroom. And I, as my coping mechanism, since my parents at the time did not want to talk about it, they thought I would heal better if we didn't keep kind of reliving it. I wasn't allowed to bring it up and was not put in counseling. And therefore, I used food as a coping mechanism, and first became very overweight, and then went the other way and became bulimic to lose the weight, and realized all my health behaviors were very poor. And went to UC Davis, became a dietitian, and going there, unfortunately, there was a chain rapist, and I was his sixth victim on campus. And
oh my gosh,
here I was just getting better, and at the age of 19 just kind of spiraled right back down. And then shockingly, that Karen Carpenter, a famous singer, died of anorexia nervosa. And seeing that her death and her symptoms played so much in the media and spoken of in articles, I realized, whoa, I can actually die from what I'm reading about in my textbooks at Davis. And so I decided to get myself and get better. And realize just that how controlling food can be on so many levels.
Yeah, I mean, and when you say food can be so controlling, what do you think it is about the food that gives you that sense of control?
It's the pleasures that it excite the brain. There have been many studies that show that, the different neurotransmitters that are released by sugars and fats, and very much the food industry plays on that. They know that.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
kind of like you can take a potato take a potato by itself, and it's pretty bland. And then you take a potato and you put a little salt on it, and it's like, oh, that tastes so much better. And then you take a potato and now you fry it and put salt on it and make a French fry, and it's almost addicting,
Mm, yeah.
and they know that, and they play on that. And the brain also, gives us those signals of the comfort and textures. And that's one reason why chocolate for so many people you'll hear people say that chocolate's very addicted to them, and they just have such a hard time. Women will say that, in fact, even around their hormonal cycles. And they've done lots of studies and have shown that it's actually the texture, the creaminess, along with the
Mm.
sugar, the way it just kind of soothes the mouth, covers the taste buds, and then the sugar comes as well.
Oh, wow, that's so interesting. So when you talk about intuitive eating, or let's back up. If somebody is recognizing just from this conversation, or maybe they've already recognized that they have an addiction to food or they're using food to self-soothe. Like, what do they do? Like, what are the steps? I mean, obviously recognizing that is one thing, but then where should someone go? What could they do to help improve that relationship with food?
Um, Definitely, because it's so emotional, there's some reason why they're using it, right, as a coping mechanism. There's a trigger, obviously, something has they've gone to food versus other coping mechanisms. I mean, obviously there's a lot out there. There's alcohol, there's over the counter drugs, there's illegal drugs, and there's also, there's pornography, there's gambling, there's shopping.
Mhm.
There are so many coping mechanisms that excessive exercise. There's so many coping mechanisms that people use in an unhealthy way to calm their body and to numb their body. It's
Mm,
not just calming, it's really to numb whatever is causing the pain. And what's so hard for people to understand is that coping mechanism is only a temporary quick fix. It is nothing that's going to be sustainable. And therefore, that's what keeps it as a bad habit. That's what
mm.
turns it from a habit into an addiction, where it becomes that it controls them.
Oh, okay.
So
Yeah.
the thing is that they need to first address what is that, and that's where they need to see a clinical psychologist. They need some definitely emotional counseling. I do the counseling for the nutrition side, but I always recommend and have a list of people that I recommend to see either a clinical psychologist, a psychiatrist, if they're going to need some medication, something they're going to, they need to be able to talk through whatever has become what they're trying to numb.
Mm. So for you, you had parents that were like, let's not talk about this. Let's not keep reliving it. So you had the suppression aspect. And then
Right.
you started to talk about it. You're talking about it today. For
Mhm.
you, what do you find with talking about it? What does that do for you? What does that do for your brain? That
It's for me, it's helpful to know, for a long time, I felt like I wasn't normal. Like I had fears that were so bad, like a women's restroom and going in there by myself. I just couldn't. Someone
Mhm.
always had to go with me. Um,
Yeah.
I that For me, um, I had to really learn not to repress my feelings, because repression is one of the most toxic symptoms to the body for health reasons. When you significantly repress something, they have shown that it leads to autoimmune disorders. Cancer is one of the number one things they say that people, diseases that people can get from repression. And I found it a very coincidental that, right after my 19th birthday and my attack, within 6 months, I had come down with my first benign breast tumor, and ended up having 5 tumors up to the age of 31 that had then become pre-malignant, and ended up having to have subcutaneous bilateral radical mastectomies. And I largely believe, because the doctor actually at Stanford University had said to my parents when I was 19, they said, has your daughter had any trauma in her life? And they go, no, she's been fine. They could not even talk about it. And I know in their age group, I know part of it was sexual, and therefore it was private, something that was just kept in the family. But also they didn't want to believe that their daughter had any mental problem from it, and therefore she was going to be okay. But not talking about it was not okay. I needed some help. I needed to process my fears. And so I used food to numb my pain, and then it became very controlling and very unhealthy.
Yeah, and it's incredible. I like how you shared, like, there's habits, but when they start controlling you, that becomes the addiction.
Right. And like, what I want people to understand is that, food is what we need as a human being to sustain life. And we can't restrict that in an anorexic way. We can't become restrictive. And with bulimia, we can't then binge and then become restrictive and purge. Very, very dangerous and toxic to our system. We can't become the binge eating disorder client and just overeat and overeat and overeat to the point that our body becomes so unhealthy that we start getting what we call morbid or what they're morbidities, which can lead to death. So that what I'm saying is, it's where we've now caused maybe type 2 diabetes from our excessive eating, or maybe we have now triggered a super high cholesterol and the clogging of our arteries from the types of foods we've selected, or we eat so much high sodium type of snacks that we love in our binging, like chips and things, that now we have a high blood pressure. So we really need to look at, when does our nutrition harm us? Because we don't allow enough in a restrictive way, or we're overeating. And we need to make sure that people understand that food is to nurture our bodies, not to harm our bodies. Food is our friend. It's nothing to fear. A lot of people have fear of certain foods, and we need to develop and promote a healthy relationship with food through proper nutrition education. And we need to not focus on calories. Some people focus on calories. We need to look at nutrient density. I always have people, when they come in my office, I've developed a nutrient density scale. So you have this scale from 1 to 10. You have foods along the bottom of it. And for example, a French fry is a 1 over on the 1 scale side, which is more, not as nutrient dense. And over on the 10 side, you have an avocado. And people are always surprised that I have an avocado as a number 10 for being super nutrient dense and wonderful for your body. The first thing I hear is, but they're so fattening. You don't understand. It's a real healthy fat that our body needs and loves. And it also has fiber and vitamin A and vitamin C. And it's so wonderful for you, and some carbohydrate. And it's a wonderful, healthy fat. And so they need to start looking at food differently. But we never, in my office, I never talk about calories. And if they bring it up, I'll talk about how I feel about a calorie, that it's an energy source. That's what calorie means. It's a number that gives amount of energy to a food, but we don't talk about calories as counting of calories.
Yeah. Yeah, I let calorie counting go a long time ago, and it feels great, and I love eating a whole avocado. When before, in the 90s and 2000s, that's when they were telling us fat is bad. Fat makes you fat. And so it really does do this thing to our brains where I've had to like rework as I've studied nutrition and realize like there are so many things, false things that I believed around nutrition, and it was all due to advertising. And, we live in this world where we think that, drinking Gatorade gives us our electrolytes, and we don't realize eating some watermelon and having some, Celtic salt is sufficient to replenish our electrolytes.
Oh, exactly. Exactly. And I also let people know, so many people when they come to see me think, oh, I don't want to go see a dietitian because she's going to tell me what I can't have. She's going to
Yeah.
take things out. And the first thing I do is I look and see what needs to be brought in.
Yes, I love that.
What
Yes.
we don't even talk, I stay away from what's out. I start with a wheel, Anna Marie, and I show a wheel and I say, okay, picture a bike, and in a wheel we've got spokes, and if you lost a spoke of a wheel, one spoke, you'll be okay. Your wheel over time is it's going to get a little weaker, but it's not going to collapse right away. Now take out two spokes of a bike wheel, and your bike, you're going to start to kind of collapse the wheel, and it's going to go clunk 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 clunk. It's just
Mhm.
not going to roll. And now picture that's your metabolism.
Mm.
Your metabolism has spokes, and you've got a spoke that's health, that's got fats. You've got a spoke that has dairy and calcium and vitamin D and phosphorus, and you've got a spoke that's all your whole grains and cereals and rice, and you've got a spoke and starches like sweet potatoes and potatoes. And then you've got a spoke that's all your protein foods, whether they're animal protein or non-animal. And then you've got another spoke that's your fruits, and the spokes that your vegetables. And then I have them look at it and I go, so tell me what spokes are missing. And then if they tell me, I say, okay, can you tell me why? Why did you take that spoke out? Because, some people have to because of a food allergy. Some people have to for a food intolerance. But what I want to make sure of is, Anna Marie, is that when they take a spoke out for whatever reason, maybe it's a religious reason, whatever reason they take that spoke out for, and it could be also a fear, then where are you getting the nutrients that come from that spoke, the vitamins and minerals, the macronutrients and the micronutrients? What other spoke are you getting them from? Because there is overlap, but
Mhm.
sometimes there's not. And I want to make sure that their body is whole, that metabolic wheel inside their body is running as optimal as possible.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure that they've got all their spokes in their metabolic wheel.
Yeah, that's so important. And I see all the time people that have deficiencies, and then they're coming in wondering why they don't feel well, or that they have no energy, or that they have these diseases. And so I love that you're like, what can we add in? Let's see what's missing first, and then what can we add in? And then, yeah, the last thing I do with clients is take things away. Because I'm like, if I take them away, you're going to be like, heck no. And you're
Well,
going to want it more.
I know. And that's and definitely there are things that we, need to take away. But I always tell people that there's not a never food. The time that there's a never food, it's like, okay, I have specific food allergies. I'm allergic to chocolate, food coloring, and nuts. And so those I have to avoid for a very strong food allergy that I have to carry EpiPens for. But when it comes to other people, if it's a food intolerance, we also have to therefore avoid a food. But it's so important. So many people avoid things out of fads, and they
Mhm.
don't even have they don't even have the true IgA, the true gluten intolerance. And they're just taking out whole grains just to avoid eating. They're afraid of bread, or there's a fear. And I just really want to hear why we've taken them out.
Yeah.
And then help them process why we can bring them back in if it's not an allergy or a food intolerance, and why we need them. What does that provide to your body when you're not giving your body that?
Mm.
Because you're not helping your immune, then you're weakening your immune system.
Yeah.
And what we put in our body either makes healthy cells or unhealthy cells. And I think anyone would say, well, I want healthy cells. But sometimes we don't realize that we're damaging our bodies and not allowing ourselves to even create them, because we're not selecting healthfully in our
Yeah.
food production.
Yeah, and I think a big part too is people just don't know. Or like, oh, I heard I can't eat bananas because they have too much sugar in it. But but then they're gonna grab a soda, but it's diet soda. It's like it's really interesting. And I think there's just like an education piece that,
Oh, it's huge. It's
we're
huge.
missing.
Oh, we
Yeah.
are. I have had so many people in my office tell me, since they can't have milk, they can't have eggs. And I said, can you explain that? And they all give me the same answer. It's crazy to me, but they all say the same thing. And it's because, well, eggs are a dairy. They're in the dairy
Yeah.
section, because they're in the dairy section.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or they
Yeah.
go in the store and I tell them that no, eggs aren't a dairy, they're a protein. So actually you can have that.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's just like you said, it's just education, and it's not faulting them.
Yeah.
Nutrition is huge. And the problem is they're just misinformed. It constantly changes in the media. One
Oh,
year
yeah.
we have eggs and the next year we can't. One year we can have red meat and the next year we can't. Or 3 eggs are good, and then now we're down to 2, but now we're back to 4 this year. I mean, it's all over the board.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and it's constantly changing, and it's consumers and marketing that do that.
Yeah.
It's what sells. I mean, let's go back. Do you remember when there were the little kiosks everywhere in town with oh, now I just lost the name of it. It's not Herbalife. It started with an M. It's on the tip of my tongue. Oh my gosh. They were a supplement that everybody was taking.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and oh, how embarrassing! I can't even think of it now. But Metabolife. Sorry, Metabolife. There
Okay.
were kiosks everywhere of Metabolife, and they're nowhere now.
Mm.
And it's because it was a fad on the shelf.
Yeah.
Coconut oil was much more prevalent on the shelves in the front aisles of many, many stores, until more recently, with all the studies coming out that since it is a saturated fat, some people are really starting to have some elevated lipid profiles that they weren't having before. Not everyone. Canada, in fact, pulled coconut oil off their shelves. So
Wow.
it just, like I said, fads come and go, but basic nutrition is what your body needs and what stays, and not fads.
Yeah. And
You
I
know,
think oh, go ahead.
no, I was just gonna say it's just sad because the media with Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, so many quick sources of media are giving bad language out there,
Yeah.
and unhealthy body images, and restrictive diet plans. And I mean, you can see it on the newsstands every week. There's at least 5 to 10 new diets at the cash registers everywhere.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
always tell people that should tell you right there that it hasn't been figured out yet, because there isn't a diet that works other than some whole eating.
Yeah. Yeah. 100%. And that's when you go back to what is your body reactive to, what is it non-reactive to, and I don't believe there's any perfect diet for any person. Like no two people are going to eat exactly the same, and
No,
they're not supposed to,
they're not.
because we're all different. But I think everything that you're saying, it goes back to listening to the body and being intuitive with the food that you're eating, and um recognizing that maybe I can eat 2 eggs, but when I eat 3, my stomach gets bloated or I just don't feel right. And so there's also a dosage as well that goes, and we have to be listening to our bodies. So when you talk about intuitive eating, share with people, what is intuitive eating? How do you become more intuitive with your food? What are signs and things you should be looking for in the body that tells you information about what you're putting in?
Sure. So first of all, mindfulness and intuitive eating, it's not dieting. It's being mindful of what you're eating, when you're eating, what's your environment like. You'll start noticing and the triggers that set you off, like, um, oh my gosh, I'm eating chips again because I just had a confrontation with someone at work, and I'm a person that
Mm,
can't handle confrontation. um, I had a confrontation with my spouse. I can't handle confrontation. There I am. I'm getting chips again. So it's not dieting at all. It's being aware, very, very aware of your food. It's no menus. It's balancing how you eat, and it's not so much what you, it's balancing more of how we're eating. What's on our plate, noticing each bite and enjoying the food, engaging in and being aware of your natural senses, like you said, your taste. How does it taste? How does it smell? Texture. We're all eating so fast now
mm,
because we're busy. People are just gobbling their food down and not even like tasting it, not
mm,
not having the pleasure of what food was meant for. Noticing your eating habits, and are they actually not habits, but have they become food rituals?
mm,
Determining your hunger level. Am I really hungry right now? Why am I eating right now? And then, feeling in control of how much you're eating. So many people feel out of control when they eat. And it's important that they're feeling, that you regain that sense of, I can stop right now. It's
mm,
not that it's ever, I'll be able to come back to that when I want it. I don't have to gobble it all down in one moment.
mm. Yeah.
Because what people are doing is largely is they're eating their emotions, they're eating their feelings, and they're
Yeah.
not really eating the food for what it is.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Eating without judgment and guilt. That's mindful eating.
Mm,
Not shaming yourself or going and hiding when you decide to eat something that you think is too, in that society might claim as being too rich, too high in fat. We can enjoy, and we need to allow ourselves to have a treat, and
yeah.
and, and but then not hiding from others that we're having that, not
Yeah.
not feeling shameful.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's the difference between recognizing emotional hunger and physical real hunger, and that whole shame piece. Shame is one of the lowest vibrational frequencies that we can function at. It feels very dense, it feels very heavy, and it is
Oh yeah,
very
very
harmful.
dark. Yes.
Very dark, very harmful for the physical body, which is no wonder why when we have a lot of shame in our life, um, that our bodies don't function right and we don't feel well. And I always talk to
Cortisol levels go up. Yeah,
Mhm,
very, very harming to the body. A lot of shame. You have it increases insecurity and self-criticism, and you go into and then you start going into what I call comparison culture with
mm,
other people, and then that becomes very dangerous. You start really looking at your body and feeling very self-conscious.
yeah, yeah. So good to bring this up and to start talking about this because I think, well, I know a lot of people just, one, they don't want to talk about it, or they don't know how to talk about it. Or again, and it goes back to that shame piece. And I think when we can start just letting go, when we can start letting go of shame at any level in our life, we start to elevate, we start to feel lighter, we start to feel better, but we do have to initially feel the feels and go through that process. And there's so much shame around food,
Oh
so
gosh,
much.
there really is. And now it's unfortunately become at a very toxic level in our society. Eating disorders t- just skyrocketed with COVID. My husband and I just got back from Australia, and I happened to be watching the news one night, and there was a whole section on um, eating disorders, that they are up 146% in
Oh, wow.
Australia since COVID. Um,
Wow.
and one thing I tell people, I give them the 5 S's, as I call them, for mindful eating practices that they can have. And here's a true tip that people can, a good takeaway for today. And the 5 S's, the first one is sit down. Just
Mm.
sit down and relax and be present in front of your food. I even have to catch myself that on the go and rushing between clients, seeing them in my clinical practice and then seeing them as a personal trainer, that I might be standing and eating on the go. And I got to remind
Mm.
myself, Trish, you owe yourself. You can take a lunch break. You can sit down like you're telling everybody else.
Yeah.
Slow. And the other S, the second one is slow down. And there's a kind of a phrase that you'll even see in some other eating, just mindful eating literature, and it is pace, don't race.
Mm.
With your food, chew slowly and eat with your non-dominant hand, and that forces you to slow down.
Yes, I love
Yeah.
that.
Another one is savor. The third S is savor. Smell, taste, and enjoy your meal with no distractions. Put your phone totally away. Turn it off. Like, turn the sound down when you can't even hear it beep. And if you're wearing an Apple Watch, literally put it on like silent so you don't hear it. And so that you get off of all social media, you don't even look at it, and don't go to the TV, and just enjoy yourself and enjoy your food, the colors, the smells, the texture. The fourth one, the fourth S is simplify. Have nutrient dense, readily available foods in reach
Mm.
that are good for you, and have the treats out of reach, so that old phrase comes back: out of sight, out of mind.
Mm.
Okay.
Yes.
And then the fifth S is satisfied. And you kind of mentioned this a few minutes ago. Feel good about nurturing yourself and eat until you're satisfied, but not stuffed.
Mm.
And it's very fascinating. I don't know, this is a little side note, a little sidebar, but I don't know if you've watched, I'm sure you have, because you're so awesome about wellness and the body and everything, and you're up to date on everything. And that's the blue zones. And in the blue zones, they talk a lot that with the Japanese culture, that they train their children at a very, very young age, which is why they have a very good control on obesity. And that is to only eat to 80% of fullness.
Yes.
And therefore, you're never stuffed. They teach their children at a very young age, when it's healthy, to stop eating. Even
Mm.
if you like the food, that, hey, you're still going to get the food again. Maybe it's leftovers tomorrow, maybe in a few days. So you don't have to feel like it's not going to come back. It's okay. You can stop.
Yeah, I love that. That 80% is very helpful, and it's helped me myself,
Mhm.
because I grew up with a family of there were 5 of us kids. And so when my mom would make a batch of whatever she was making to eat, it
Mhm.
was you get your first serving and you eat it as fast as you can, because once it's gone, it's gone. This is back in the day when you had one, mom was making one thing. You don't get to go to the refrigerator in between meals. Like you don't like, you
Right.
don't she's not making a different meal for each kid. This is like how it used to be. And so I've had to actually train myself as well to
Yeah.
slow down. And that's naturally my personality is go, 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 go. So
Yeah.
I layered those two things together, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, ah, but yeah, I have to always remind myself to slow down
Mm-hmm.
80%, and I get to eat again, whenever I choose, and I'm satisfied, and it's
Yeah.
fine.
Well, we just all need to respect our bodies more and their unique and genetic blueprint, and treat our bodies with dignity.
Mhm.
Feel free about our movement, and you know treat even exercise not excessively, but that our bodies were built for movement.
Mhm. Yeah.
I always remind people of that we have muscles to support our skeletal system. And when, we become atrophied in our muscles, then that puts the load on the skeletal system. Then you start seeing joint problems. But, what I'm getting at with that is that we don't want to do it. We want to have our calories, in our intake and our nutrient density to match our movement, but we also, it's also important that we move,
Mm.
and that we enjoy our ability to move. I think that's another thing that people are looking now, at exercise, who sometimes too excessively or fearfully, because they either feel that their body size isn't isn't right to go into a movement class, or then you have the other person that's over exercising, that they just feel that if they're not doing something too intense, that's not enough. And we just got to
Mhm.
come back to just
Mhm.
movement, just
Yeah.
and enjoy it. you know
Yes.
have the ability to move, and realize what it feels like. And if you find movement difficult, do what isn't difficult. There's no right and wrong with movement. We all, our body alignment is all different, even the way we're created. And then if we do happen to have an injury, then we're even more so different.
Mhm.
But that we also, not only do we need food, but we need to move. And so we need to also choose exercises that honor our body, and movement that honors our health, and food that honors our health. And we can make it all a nice balance.
Mm. I love all of that. That's so good. And totally appreciate you coming on the podcast today. And I'd love for you to share with people, maybe there's somebody out there that's listening that's like, I need to, or I want to get a handle on my relationship with food. Maybe they're struggling. I know you talked about the wheel you have. How can people get in touch with you if they have questions, or maybe they want to book a session or just get some more information?
Yes, I have a website, trishabland.com, or um, they can, and therefore they'll just see what I offer. But also, they can call me. My number is 661-201-6298, and we can, I'll continue to tell them more so about my approach with food, depending on what they need help with, how I would approach that, and they can book an appointment. But yeah, I just like to help people be well. I like to think of myself more related to definitely whole body wellness, and helping them emotionally and physically definitely get better. And I never work out of my scope of practice, so definitely if there is a very important um, emotional connection to food or fear, then I will also recommend, it's a multi-system approach that they do see a clinical psychologist or psychiatrist to help them with that piece. Definitely, we've had to have lots of psychology classes as dietitians, but like I said, that's not my primary scope, and I definitely would also refer them for that.
Oh, I love that. I love it when we can go to practitioners And when we need a little bit more, they can refer us to another person that can help us because, it does take a village, right?
Oh, it really does. No, it does. And that's why I love all the different wellness machines that you have and different systems that you have that you offer at your center. It's phenomenal. If someone listening today also hasn't seen Anna Marie's facility, maybe you've heard her podcast, but you haven't gone into her facility, you really need to make the time to go in there because she has a wealth of different machines to help really anybody with different things, and as well as a wealth of information to help people.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Well, Trish, thank you so much for joining us on the Happy Whole You podcast. I really appreciate you.
I appreciate you as well and giving me this opportunity to share and the time. God bless you for that. I just enjoy speaking about wellness so much. So thank you very much for having me today.